Chapter 201. I am also very lonely. Jianyun's heart started to beat rapidly. He was so pretty, had a good figure, and was very generous. He even spoiled her very much. Being liked by him should be a very happy thing. But Jianyun could not help but sigh in her heart. But this was not what she wanted. What she wanted was always the love between the two of them, just like how grandfather and grandmother would love each other for the rest of their lives. But even if Huo Liancheng repeatedly reiterated that he was serious about her, Jianyun could not believe him no matter what. Perhaps she had been prejudiced against him from the beginning. Is it better? Jianyun tried but could not get rid of Huo Liancheng's hand. She did not struggle anymore. She changed her hand to a towel and continued to wipe his sweat. Yes. Huo Liancheng stared at Jianyun, his eyes focused. Get up and drink some water. Jianyun motioned for Huo Liancheng to get the cup of water on the coffee table. Huo Liancheng closed his eyes and said weakly, I don't have the strength. I can't get up. Jianyun was so angry that she breathed out from her nose. She pouted and said angrily, Weren't you very powerful when you hugged me just now? You lost the strength after only a short while? I just used up all my strength. Huo Liancheng's face was red, and his heart was beating fast. Then let me help you up, okay? Jianyun almost rolled her eyes. Okay. Huo Liancheng immediately stretched his arm towards Jianyun. Jianyun was speechless. She originally wanted to ignore Huo Liancheng, but seeing him keep looking at her, she did not know why, but her heart softened. She reached over and put his arm on her shoulder. Her hands wrapped around his waist, and she pushed him up. Who knew that Huo Liancheng did not want Jianyun to help him at all? When he saw Jianyun hug him, he immediately turned around and pressed her down. Hey, what are you doing? Jianyun was angry. She knew she could not be soft-hearted to him. Huo Liancheng quickly leaned over and kissed Jianyun's mouth. So bitter. Jianyun frowned and smelled the medicine in Huo Liancheng's mouth. She did not let go of her teeth. Huo Liancheng did not do anything else. He only kissed Jianyun and let go. He looked at her and smiled. Why do you hate it so much? Jianyun glared at him angrily. Since you don't like me, then hate me. At least you still have me in your heart. Huo Liancheng rubbed his nose against Jianyun's chin again. Are you crazy? Jianyun asked. Jianyun was speechless again. What kind of logic was Huo Liancheng using? Yes, I am sick. I am quite sick. Huo Liancheng said in a low voice. You are a good actress, but can you stop making me sick? Jianyun could not help but shiver. She reached out to push Huo Liancheng. The porridge is ready. Hurry up and eat. I still need to go to the hospital later. Huo Liancheng was silent for a while, then he got up and sat down quietly. He picked up the bowl of porridge, but he drank 2 mouthfuls and put it down. Jianyun was tidying up her hair that was messed up by him. Seeing that, she asked, Why aren't you eating? Huo Liancheng turned to look at her. There's no taste. I can't eat it. You have a fever. You can't eat greasy food. Eat something light first, otherwise you will feel uncomfortable. Jianyun patiently explained, but this is not delicious at all. Huo Liancheng had a disgusted expression on his face. It's fine if you don't want to eat it, but you should be hungry. Jianyun got up and was about to leave. She felt that she had gone crazy, which was why she would coax Uncle Huo to eat porridge here. Just as Jianyun finished speaking, she heard a few sounds behind her. When she turned her head to look, she saw Huo Liancheng put down the bowl. The bowl of porridge was full. Clearly, he had swallowed it in a few mouthfuls. It's finished. Huo Liancheng looked at Jianyun and said. Jianyun bit her lip and looked conflicted. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that Huo Liancheng was really abnormal today. Huo Liancheng put down the bowl of porridge, picked up the cup of water, and drank half a cup of water. He stood up and walked towards the bathroom. Jianyun did not know what he wanted to do, so she casually put the bowl on the coffee table into the kitchen. When she came out again, she heard the sound of water coming from the bathroom. Huo Liancheng was taking a shower. Jianyun did not think too much about it and went into her bedroom. Not long after, she heard Huo Liancheng calling her from outside. What? Jianyun walked to the door and asked. Help me bring the towel over. Huo Liancheng said. Jianyun was embarrassed. He wanted her to take a bath towel? She could not help but think of the scene that she saw in the bathroom yesterday morning. Her mind was like a demonic sound that went through her brain, resounding through Wu Weng's thick sentence. Is it big? Jianyun immediately shook her head and shook that abnormal association away from her head. She felt a little dry on her face and could not help but say, Why didn't you take the towel before you took a bath? I was confused and forgot. Huo Liancheng's answer was dignified. Come out naked. Jianyun was speechless. You said so, then I will come out. Huo Liancheng sounded very excited. Ah, no, you're not allowed to come out. Jianyun was shocked. She knew that with Huo Liancheng's thick skin, it would not be a problem for him to come out naked. But she did not want to see what she should not see. Jianyun did not dare to delay any longer. With a whoosh, she ran into the laundry room. She went to the balcony to get the towel that was under the sun and quickly ran back. She knocked on the bathroom door. Here you go. Huo Liancheng pulled the door open. Jianyun was so scared that she quickly covered her eyes and turned around, not daring to look at him. Okay. Huo Liancheng took the towel and said after 3 seconds. Jianyun walked 2 steps forward, but Huo Liancheng held her hand. Jianyun became nervous again. Don't be afraid of me. Huo Liancheng's body was warm and had water vapor. His throat was a bit hoarse. Haha, I'm not afraid of you. Jianyun awkwardly laughed a few times and just happened to hear her phone ring. She hurriedly shook Huo Liancheng off and ran far away like a rabbit. Huo Liancheng looked at Jianyun's back and his eyes were full of gentleness. The call was from Bai Yanran. Jianyun had just picked up when she heard her sobbing voice over there. Jianyun, he left. You guys. Jianyun was most curious about this. Yes. Bai Yanran did not say much. It was just a single word, but it was shy and timid. It also made Jianyun excited. Jianyun turned around and saw Huo Liancheng coming over. She was afraid that she would say something wrong to anger him again, so she ran back to her room and chatted with Bai Yanran for more than 10 minutes before hanging up the phone and coming out. Huo Liancheng was still sitting on the sofa, but he had already put on his clothes. He wore a gray t-shirt and black pants. His hair was placed in front of his forehead, and he looked very fresh and beautiful. He was really a good-looking person. Everything he wore looked good. Jianyun sighed in her heart. What else do you need me to do? Jianyun asked. Huo Liancheng looked at her. Why do you ask? If there's nothing else to do, I'll go to the hospital. Jianyun shrugged and avoided Huo Liancheng's sight. Is there anything your mother wants you to do? Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes. No, I'm afraid she'll be lonely. I'll go talk to her. Jianyun walked to the sofa and reached for her bag. Huo Liancheng grabbed Jianyun's wrist and looked at her sincerely. I am also very lonely. Can you stay and talk to me? Chapter 202. Do you drive a sports car or a snail? Jianyun heard this and smiled. How can you be lonely? Just find a little girl to chat with? Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes. Don't you mind if I talk to a little girl? Why should I? That's your freedom. Jianyun lowered her head and put her phone in her bag. She checked her wallet and then carried her bag and was about to leave. Jianyun had just walked to the door when she noticed someone following behind her. She turned around and asked, What are you doing? I don't want to be alone at home. I'll go with you. Huo Liancheng took out his shoes from the shoe cabinet and bent down to change them. Hey, you have a fever. You should rest at home. Jianyun went to push Huo Liancheng. Do you hate me that much? You don't even want to see me? Huo Liancheng staggered as Jianyun pushed him. His expression turned cold. No. Jianyun did not expect herself to be so strong that she almost pushed Huo Liancheng down. She was wearing slippers and her height was not even up to his chin. Could it be that he was already so weak? Thinking of this, Jianyun quickly waved her hand and went over to help him. I was afraid that you would feel uncomfortable if you blew outside. Although she really did not want to see him in her heart, she could not say these words in front of him. Otherwise, how would she get along with him in the future? Huo Liancheng did not say a word. He turned around and walked to the sofa to sit down. This time, it was not good for Jianyun to leave. It turned. She thought for a moment. Are you angry? Jianyun asked. Huo Liancheng lowered his head and did not say anything. From Jianyun's angle, she could see that his eyelids were drooping and his face was cold and stiff. Was Mr. Huo sulking? Jianyun was used to Huo Liancheng's cold and aloof side and his deep shrewdness that did not show his emotions. This was the first time Jianyun saw him sulking like a child. She could not help but feel a little strange in her heart. All right, then you can come with me. Jianyun had always been soft and not hard. Facing President Huo like this, she was at her wits' end. Huo Liancheng immediately stood up and walked towards the door without hesitation. Jianyun tilted her head and looked at Huo Liancheng's back. She suddenly felt like she had been fooled again. However, since she had already said it, she could not go back on her words. So she quickly followed him. You should bring a coat. There's wind outside. If you sweat, it will be easy to catch a cold. Go and help me get it. Huo Liancheng stood still. Jianyun had no choice but to run back to his bedroom. She knew Huo Liancheng had a cloakroom in his bedroom, but she had never gone in, so when Jianyun opened the door of the cloakroom, she was shocked by the decorations inside. What a big cloakroom. There were a lot of clothes. From business to casual clothes, they were neatly arranged. There were also shoes, ties, and a drawer of watches. Jianyun was jealous when she saw it. Huo Liancheng was still waiting outside. Jianyun did not have time to look. She picked a thin coat from the wardrobe and quickly went out. When Jianyun came out, she saw Huo Liancheng had already changed his shoes. He was standing at the entrance with his hands in his pockets, waiting for her. Seeing Jianyun come over, he turned around and opened the door. The two of them took the elevator and went down to the underground parking lot. Huo Liancheng reached out and passed a bunch of car keys to Jianyun. You drive. Jianyun looked down and saw that it was a Ferrari logo. She pressed the button and a red supercar in front lit up. She immediately had a bitter face. I have never driven a sports car before. There must be a first time. Huo Liancheng walked over and directly sat in the passenger seat. Jianyun also got into the car. She fumbled around for a while before starting the car. Huo Liancheng closed his eyes after getting into the car and leaned back to rest. But not long after, he opened his eyes and looked at Jianyun with a very speechless look. Are you driving a sports car or a snail? Jianyun nervously held the steering wheel and did not dare to look away from the front. Wait, I am not familiar with it. Then, Huo Liancheng waited for Jian Yun to speed up 20 yards to 40 yards. He could not help but roll his eyes. Are you familiar? Wait a minute. I haven't touched a car in years. You asked me to drive a sports car as soon as you got up. I'm nervous. Jian Yun was sweating. She was not so nervous when she drove Huo Liancheng's car when he was drunk the last time. Huo Liancheng did not say anything. Fortunately, there were not many people in this area. Jian Yun slowly found the feeling and sped up the car. Do you want some water? The water is in my bag. Take it yourself. Jian Yun passed her bag to Huo Liancheng. Huo Liancheng took out the glass and took 2 sips before he said to Jian Yun, Your phone rang. Jian Yun asked casually, Who called? Ouyang Beiqing. Huo Liancheng asked, Do you want to pick it up? Yes, give it to me. Jian Yun reached for her phone. Huo Liancheng put a Bluetooth earpiece on her ear. Jian Yun immediately heard Ouyang Beiqing's cold voice, Yunduo. Little uncle, Jian Yun trembled guiltily. She asked, Are you there? Yes, I just arrived. Ouyang Beiqing paused for a second and said, You can do it now. How dare you set me up? Little uncle, I am clearly helping you. You like Yanran, and Yanran also likes you. Then why are you not together? Jian Yun said. You don't understand, Ouyang Beiqing said. I know. You are afraid that Yanran will not be able to take it when you are not at home all year round. You are afraid that you will treat her unfairly, right? Jian Yun interrupted Ouyang Beiqing and continued. But opportunities are created by people. You will not continue to work in the army. Or Yanran can also go to your side. Let's not talk about this anymore. Ouyang Beiqing was silent for a while and suddenly asked, Have you consulted a lawyer? Jian Yun was stunned for a moment before she realized that Ouyang Beiqing was talking about Ouyang Fei's divorce. She subconsciously looked at Huo Liancheng, who was resting with his eyes narrowed, and said, Not yet, little uncle. Mom told me some things. She said that she does not want property anymore and only wants a divorce as soon as possible. What do you mean? Ouyang Beiqing asked Jian Yun. I don't know. Jian Yun did not know what she wanted to do. She felt that she should respect her mother's decision, but she was not willing to accept it. Jian Dongming's cold treatment of her and his love for Lin Lanlan these years made her feel very unbalanced. Why should she hand everything over to Lin Rong and Lin Lanlan mother and daughter? I have something to tell you tonight. Ouyang Beiqing seemed to have met someone over at Ouyang Beiqing's side. He greeted Jian Yun and hung up the phone. Jian Yun took off her Bluetooth earphones. There was an intersection in front of them. She parked the car and waited for the green light. She wondered if she should tell Huo Liancheng before looking for Lei Qiansheng. However, Jian Yun thought about it and did not say anything. Whether she wanted it or not, she could not decide now. She felt that her mother was impulsive to say such things. In any case, her mother and father had dragged on for so many years. She did not care about this short period of time. She wanted her mother to think about it again, before making a decision. Chapter 203, Why do we have such a clear line between us? An hour later, Jian Yun finally drove into the hospital. Along the way, she saw countless aunties and aunties riding electric scooters flying past them, which made Huo Liancheng speechless. Jian Yun parked the car and took Huo Liancheng's coat. She then took her bag and a cup of water. She then opened the door for the weak Mr. Huo. She felt that she was no different from a working sister. Huo Liancheng walked in front of her with his long legs. Jian Yun was one step behind him. There were not many people in the hospital in the afternoon. The spring sun was very warm. The flower bed was full of red and yellow flowers. The grass was covered with a layer of cherry red petals. A very fresh fragrance filled the air. Jian Yun looked at Huo Liancheng's back. When she was about to enter the special care building, she could not help pulling his sleeves. I have something to ask you. Huo Liancheng stopped and turned his head. Huh? Well, President Gu's secretary came to see me today. He wants me to go back to the Mings to work. Jian Yun's mouth twitched. At first, she said she would give me 3 times my salary, but I didn't agree. Later, she gave me 5 times her salary and asked me if I agreed. Do you want to go back? Huo Liancheng asked. Jian Yun was willing to share her matters with him, which made him very happy. I didn't want to go back, but... Jian Yun scratched her face. 5 times the salary really moved her heart. Ask him for 10 times the salary, or else you won't go back. Huo Liancheng reached over and led Jian Yun upstairs. 10 times. Isn't that too cruel? A row of black lines slid down Jian Yun's forehead. She was shocked by Huo Liancheng's high requirements. 10 times the salary is considered ruthless? Huo Liancheng looked at Jian Yun from the corner of his eye. Do you want to know how much money they gave me when the Mings came looking for me? Jian Yun quickly nodded. She was so curious that she even ignored Huo Liancheng holding her hand and putting it in his pocket. She was really curious. Huo Liancheng's own company was many times bigger than the Mings and had a lot of assets. He also had his own company and did not lack money at all. What did the Mings use to move him and invite him to be the CEO? Huo Liancheng raised a finger. 10 million? Jian Yun shook her head. No, 10 million is too little for you. Could it be 100 million? Jian Yun was shocked again. No, you can't guess. But I'm not interested in money. I want half of the shares of Mings. Huo Liancheng said. Jian Yun could not help but grind her teeth. She cast a sidelong glance at Huo Liancheng with extreme hatred towards the rich. Ordinary people would fight to the death in order to earn tens of thousands of yuan, but these rich people did not even care about tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of yuan. It was really unfair. Don't look at me like that. Isn't my money yours? Huo Liancheng looked at Jian Yun's face full of hatred and could not help but raise his eyebrows speechlessly. You are wrong. Jian Yun shook her head and said, Your money is yours. I need to earn my own money. Why do you need to be so clear with me? Huo Liancheng was not happy. It's better to be clear about the boundary, otherwise we will have to drag this out in the end. Jian Yun muttered. Money was a good thing, but she firmly believed that there would not be a pie falling from the sky. She had already suffered a loss on this. She accepted Huo Liancheng's 1 million yuan and ended up in such an awkward situation. She learned from her mistakes she would not take his money no matter what. What did you say? Huo Liancheng did not hear what Jian Yun said clearly. His intuition told him that she must have said something that made him unhappy. Nothing. Jian Yun curled her lips and changed the topic. I mean, I am too embarrassed to ask for 10 times the salary. I am not doing any important job. I feel bad for asking so much money. Then how much do you think you can accept? Huo Liancheng asked again. They had already gone upstairs and were standing at the foot of the stairs. Then I'll agree to 5 times the salary. That would be 40,000 a month, so I have to save for half a year to get that much. Jian Yun suddenly shut her mouth. She looked at Huo Liancheng because she realized that it seemed a little petty to say this in front of Huo Liancheng. To him, several tens of thousands of yuan was probably equivalent to a few cents in the eyes of ordinary people. He did not even look at it. As long as you like it. Huo Liancheng had an idea in his heart to let Jian Yun stay in another department. He would not be at ease if Jian Yun stayed in another department. Why not? Hey, let go. Jian Yun also realized that her hand was still in Huo Liancheng's pocket. She immediately blushed and wanted to pull it out. Let's go, Huo Liancheng said. Huo Liancheng said that he would not let go of anything. He brought Jian Yun to Liang Fei's ward. A few nurses walked over. Jian Yun was familiar with 2 of them. Jian Yun saw them smiling at her, and she did not want to struggle in front of so many people. She could only pretend as if nothing had happened and smile. In fact, she was already shouting in her heart. Entering Liang Fei's ward, Jian Yun found that the nurse had raised the bed. Liang Fei was half leaning on the bed and looked very energetic. Liang Fei looked very happy when she saw Huo Liancheng come in. She hurriedly called him to sit down. Seeing that he did not look well, she could not help but ask him out of concern. Mom, he has a fever. Jian Yun took out a cup of water and passed it to Huo Liancheng. Then she walked to Liang Fei's bed and wanted to talk to Liang Fei. You child, Liancheng has a fever. Why did you take him out? Why don't you take good care of him at home? Liang Fei angrily scolded Jian Yun. When Jian Yun heard this, her brain suddenly stopped working. She stared at Liang Fei with a face full of confusion. She really could not react. Why did her mother suddenly say these words? Moreover, from the tone of her voice, her mother seemed to know that she and Huo Liancheng were living together. Mom, I did not live together with him. Jian Yun subconsciously waved her hand to clarify, but she immediately saw Liang Fei's face revealed a surprised expression. Jian Yun really wanted to bite off her tongue, so Mom just casually said one sentence, but she actually confessed without beating around the bush. Cough, cough? When Huo Liancheng heard Jian Yun's words, he also could not hold back his laughter. He was immediately choked by a mouthful of water and coughed. Jian Yun looked at Liang Fei uneasily. She had been strictly educated by her mother since she was young and could not be too casual. So when Shu Haiyang wanted to have sex with her several times in university, she rejected him. Jian Yun was worried that her mother would guess that she and Huo Liancheng lived together and would be angry at her. However, what surprised Jian Yun was that Liang Fei smiled and said, Yunduo, don't look at me like that. Your mother is not such an open-minded person. The 2 of you like each other and it is natural for you to be together. Mom will not object. The corner of Jian Yun's mouth twitched. She looked at Huo Liancheng out of the corner of her eye and saw that he was smiling with his head lowered. Her face turned black, but she could not refute her mother's words. She almost had internal injuries. Mom, there's one more thing. My vacation is almost here. I have to go back to work next week. I probably can't come here as often as I am now. Jian Yun held Liang Fei's hand and said softly, Yes, women still need to have their own career. They can't blindly rely on men. It's good that you go back to work. You don't have to worry, Bar. Liang Fei looked at Huo Liancheng as she said, Liancheng, you don't look well. Do you want to find a doctor to take a look? Chapter 204, His Personal Affairs. It's okay. Huo Liancheng put down the cup and smiled gently. Jian Yun was not used to her mother calling Huo Liancheng by his name, so naturally and kindly. But when Liang Fei said it, she also noticed that Huo Liancheng's face was unusually red. Yunduo, what are you standing there for? Go and touch his forehead to see if the fever has started again. Liang Fei was more concerned about Huo Liancheng than Jian Yun. Oh. Jian Yun came back to her senses and immediately walked over. She touched Huo Liancheng's forehead with the back of her hand and tried the temperature. Jian Yun only found that Huo Liancheng's body temperature had risen again. She quickly grabbed his big hand and touched her palm. It was also shockingly hot. Wait a moment, I'll go find a nurse. Jian Yun turned around and ran out. In less than 2 or 3 minutes, she came back. Behind her was a nurse who was familiar with her. The nurse held a thermometer of mercury in her hand. Huo Liancheng naturally would not agree to put the thermometer under his tongue. He only agreed to put it under his armpit. It's already 40 degrees. When the nurse took the thermometer, she was also nervous. Go and take a blood test? No, Huo Liancheng directly refused. Ignore him. Jian Yun pulled the nurse and left. Does the blood test require a prescription from the doctor? Can it be tested here? Sure, come with me. The nurse led Jian Yun to the doctor's office. The doctors and nurses here knew Huo Liancheng. They also knew that he had a good relationship with the director, Senior Yin. The last time Dr. Elson came, it was because of his relationship. So when the doctors heard that Huo Liancheng had a fever, they didn't even let him run. He asked the laboratory staff to come over to collect blood. Although Huo Liancheng did not want to be stabbed, Jian Yun insisted, and he agreed. 5 minutes later, the results were sent. The white cells were a little high. The department director said that he had inflammation and prescribed some anti-inflammatory medicine and fever medicine. He told Jian Yun to let Huo Liancheng have a good rest and drink more water and liquid. This time, Wu Yangfei did not let Jian Yun stay in the hospital. After urging her a few times, Jian Yun could only go back with Huo Liancheng. The car drove halfway and narrowed her eyes. Huo Liancheng, who was in a bad mood, suddenly said, I'm hungry. There's a noodle house in front of us. Why don't we go and eat first? Jian Yun asked. No, I want to eat the noodles you ordered. Huo Liancheng said lazily. All right, bear with it. Jian Yun was very self-aware of working as a little sister now. She was very cooperative no matter what Huo Liancheng said. 15 minutes later, they arrived home. Jian Yun let Huo Liancheng sit on the sofa and watched him eat the medicine first before she went into the kitchen. At noon, she also ate a bowl of porridge with Huo Liancheng. At this time, she was also hungry, so she cooked more noodles. This time, she did not mix the meat paste, but the very light soup bottom. When the noodles were brought out, Jian Yun clearly saw Huo Liancheng's face full of disdain. Who did you learn your cooking skills from? Halfway through the noodles, Huo Liancheng suddenly asked. Grandma, I grew up with Grandma since I was young. I only went back after studying, but Dad started a company at that time. Mom worked during the day and had to manage the company's accounts at night. She didn't have time to take care of me. Grandma taught me how to cook. Well, actually, my dishes are average. Because it's too troublesome, I'm studying how to cook noodles. This is convenient. Jian Yun buried her head in the food and said casually, Why didn't you mention Grandpa and Grandma? Huo Liancheng seemed to be bored and had nothing to say. Grandpa and Grandma passed away a long time ago. I don't have any impression of them. After Jian Yun finished speaking, she suddenly raised her head to look at Huo Liancheng. Why are you asking about me? You never tell me about you. What do you want to know about me? Huo Liancheng slowly ate the noodles. His dark jade-like eyes were always focused on Jian Yun's face. How many children do you have? Jian Yun was just saying it casually. She did not expect Huo Liancheng to be so cooperative, so she scratched her face and asked the question she was interested in. 2, and a younger sister. Huo Liancheng said. Jian Yun could not help but raise her eyebrows. Huo Liancheng actually answered. However, Jian Yun was immediately puzzled. Her sister should be a socialite. Why had she never seen any news about her sister in the newspapers and magazines? Then why did Cheng Muzi call you fourth brother? Although Jian Yun was curious, she knew her limits. She knew there were some things she shouldn't ask too much. Didn't you ask this question last time? Huo Liancheng lifted his eyelids. His eyes were cold. She didn't care about him so much, which made him very unhappy. Really? Jian Yun's eyes were blank. She felt that her memory had not been good recently. Maybe it was because she was too busy. I am fourth in the family. Cheng Muzi is my cousin. Huo Liancheng patiently explained again. Jian Yun remembered what he said. It seemed that she had asked this question when she had dinner in his office. Your family is so big. Don't they care if you come out to be a manager? Jian Yun asked again. This was the question she was most curious about. It was probably also the question that everyone who knew Huo Liancheng's identity was curious about. They can't control me. Huo Liancheng finished the noodles and finished the soup. He pushed the bowl away and said, I still want more. You are sick. You can't eat too much. Otherwise, you will feel bad. Jian Yun ignored him. Are you concerned about me? Huo Liancheng looked at Jian Yun and his eyes became deep. You are my employer. I am indebted to you. Of course I care about you. Jian Yun lowered her eyes and did not look at him. But after saying this, she clearly felt Huo Liancheng's eyes turn colder and the surrounding air became heavy. Jian Yun shrunk her head and decided to stay away from him. This lord was too difficult to serve. He would let out cold air if he did not agree. His fever was so high. Why did he not lower the temperature for himself? I have a headache. Come to my room after you finish eating and give me a massage. Huo Liancheng forcefully suppressed his anger. He told himself that he should not be too impatient with an unromantic blockhead like her. The consequence of losing control of his temper was to push her away again. Bear with it. Since he wanted her heart, he could not be too impatient. Can't you do it yourself? Jian Yun was very resistant to physical contact with Huo Liancheng and could not help but complain in a low voice. I am the employer. Huo Liancheng bit the words and emphasized his tone. Jian Yun had nothing else to say. She had dug a hole, and she had to fill it even if she was on her knees. Hurry up. Huo Liancheng walked into the room and specially reminded him. There was only half a bowl of noodles left, but Jian Yun had lost her appetite. She dawdled for a long time before she finally entered Huo Liancheng's bedroom. As soon as Jian Yun entered, she saw Huo Liancheng sitting on the bed with a book in his hand. It was almost 5 o'clock. The sun was setting, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone through the open curtains. It landed on his face. Half of his face was dyed gold, and the other half was hidden in the dark. Half was an angel, and the other half was a devil. This was the first impression Jian Yun had of his current image. However, no matter how he looked, it could not conceal Huo Liancheng's innate nobility. It was simply too beautiful. Chapter 205, Disjunction. Come here. Huo Liancheng didn't even look up. He flipped a page of the book and said, I said, just press your head. Jian Yun always felt this kind of atmosphere was strange. She dawdled over and saw that Huo Liancheng was still sitting on the bed and did not move. She could not help but say, You sit on the chair. Come up. Huo Liancheng closed the book and looked at Jian Yun. No. Jian Yun shook her head firmly. Huo Liancheng did not say anything. He just looked at Jian Yun. Jian Yun blushed and her heart beat fast when he looked at her. She heard him say, Is this how you work for the boss? Jian Yun pursed her lips. She was now deeply aware that she seemed to be trapped by him again. She could not help but secretly spit in her heart. What a pig's head. She knew that her IQ was not as good as him, so she should not speak nonsense. Thinking of this, Jian Yun could only unwillingly climb onto the bed. Then she stretched out her arms from far away from Huo Liancheng like a long-armed ape and pressed his head. There's still this place. Huo Liancheng pointed at his shoulder again. Jian Yun used to massage Ouyang Fei a lot. She had learned it before, but she had not done it for a long time. Today, after pressing for a while, she felt her hands start to feel sore. But Huo Liancheng didn't say anything, so she couldn't stop either. Otherwise, she would have arranged her head for him. It was just that Jian Yun woke up early in the morning and did not rest until now. The bedroom was very quiet. There was only the sound of 2 people breathing. This kind of silence made her nerves gradually relax, and she began to doze off. Huo Liancheng sat there with his eyes narrowed. Jian Yun's small hands pressed down on him very comfortably. He also saw Jian Yun's every move. She was sleepy, but the movements of her hands pinching his shoulders did not stop but became lighter and lighter. As her small head moved bit by bit, not long after, her head rested on his shoulder and did not move. She was so tired that she could not take it anymore. Jian Yun fell asleep just like that. She was really sleepy. The weather in April was still a little cold, but she felt especially warm today. It was as if she was holding a stove. However, it would be great if the stove was not so hot. Huo Liancheng also felt very comfortable. Jian Yun was soft and fragrant, and the temperature was just right. Most importantly, she was sleeping obediently. There was no longer the tense atmosphere during the day. At this moment, he was hugging her and his heart felt soft. Jian Yun slept until midnight. She was woken up by the heat, but when she opened her eyes, she found someone beside her. She was really scared. There was no light in the house, but the curtains were not closed. The faint moonlight sprinkled in. She got used to it for a while and found that she was in Huo Liancheng's bed and he was hugging her tightly. No wonder she was so hot. It turned out that she was really sleeping with a big stove in her arms. Jian Yun curled her lips. She saw that Huo Liancheng was not awake, so she reached out to touch his forehead. There was sweat, but it was not hot. It was normal temperature. Jian Yun guessed that he was sweating when he was sleeping and the fever had subsided. Since she took care of him, she had to take care of him. Jian Yun did not care about the past and quietly got off the bed. She went to the bathroom to wring a hot towel and came back to wipe off Huo Liancheng's sweat and head. Jian Yun naturally would not stay. She covered Huo Liancheng with the blanket. She then returned to her bedroom. She had selectively ignored the fact that Huo Liancheng had slept with her for the entire night. Jian Yun felt sweat all over her body, but it was not good for her to take a bath in the middle of the night. She did not want to get more energetic the more she washed. It would be bad if she did not sleep. Hence, when she returned to her room, she only changed her clothes and climbed onto the bed to the. After about 10 minutes after there was no sound in Jian Yun's room, a tall figure pushed open the door and walked in. Without a word, he laid down and even extended his arm to clap. The next morning, when Jian Yun woke up, it was already past 6 o'clock. This sleep was very full. She got off the bed refreshed. When she turned her head, she suddenly realized that something was wrong because she found that there was an extra pillow on the bed. Usually, she would sleep alone with only one pillow. She was sure that when she slept last night, she would sleep. When she slept last night, she was sure that she only had one pillow. Then, why did a pillow suddenly appear out of thin air? Could it be that, after she returned to her room last night, Huo Liancheng also came over? Jianyun felt that was very likely. A sound came from outside. Jianyun pushed open the door and walked out. She saw that Huo Liancheng was already dressed neatly. He was dressed in shirt, pants, a suit jacket, and a suitcase on the tea table. The suitcase was unzipped. Inside, there were a few clothes neatly arranged. They were all shirt, pants, and a change of underwear. You went to work so early? Jianyun looked at the clock on the wall. It was only 6:30. Huo Liancheng was so dedicated to his work. I went on a business trip to the capital. I should be back in 3 or 4 days. Huo Liancheng was wearing a tie in front of the mirror. When he saw Jianyun come out, he explained. Are you okay with your fever? You should rest for a few days when you are sick. Jianyun frowned and said very disapprovingly. Are you concerned about me? Huo Liancheng turned his head to look at Jianyun. These words had become his mantra recently. It was just that every time Jianyun answered, he would not be satisfied. Yes, you are my employer. Of course I care about you. Jianyun rolled her eyes at him. She took the ear thermometer that was placed on the table and walked over to Huo Liancheng to measure his body temperature. Huo Liancheng was too tall. Jianyun held the ear thermometer and placed it in his ear. While she was waiting for the ear thermometer to sound, she felt Huo Liancheng's hot breath on her face. It was so hot that her ears turned red. Moreover, he looked at her with that kind of affectionate gaze. Jianyun even felt that if it was not for his occasionally gloomy temperament that made her afraid, she might really like him because of his gaze. D. The thermometer finally rang. Jianyun heaved a sigh of relief and quickly took off the ear thermometer. She looked at it and saw that it was 36.6 degrees. Looks like the fever is completely gone. Are you going to leave now? Jianyun thought about it and still asked, do you want to catch a plane? Yes. Huo Liancheng's eyes were still focused on Jianyun's face, as if he could not see enough. Remember to take the anti-inflammatory medicine. Even if your fever has gone down, you still have to finish it. Also, take the anti-inflammatory medicine with you. If you have a fever again, remember to take your medicine. Jianyun kept nagging. She found a small bag and put the anti-inflammatory medicine and fever medicine into it. After thinking for a while, she also stuffed the ear thermometer into it and put it in the box. Huo Liancheng did not stop Jianyun from doing this. At this time, his heart had melted. If she could treat him as gently as she treated him every day in the future, he would be willing to give up everything. The phone rang. Chen Muz, who came to pick him up, urged him from below. Huo Liancheng suddenly wanted to stay and not go on a business trip. However, work still had to continue. No matter how much Huo Liancheng could not bear to part with Jianyun, he still went downstairs. Jianyun saw Huo Liancheng out the door and went to the balcony. She stood on the balcony. Looking down from such a high building, the scenery on the ground was very small. She saw Huo Liancheng walk out of the corridor and get into the car. Before getting into the car, he looked up. Even from such a distance, Jianyun could feel the passion in his eyes.